You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 160, we'll be taking a look at the latest in Overwatch esports, and see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, and so much more. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us on Twitch for our live show, as we are starting an hour earlier, because, you know, there's a little bit of All-Star stuff going on later tonight. And I do want to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So, joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar and Ed. We're hot off the heels of the Stage 2 playoffs. There's a lot of rumblings going on about some potential changes that are going to be hitting not only Overwatch, but the Overwatch League as a whole. But how has this past week been treating you?
Well, let's get the real important news.
Oh, okay. I already know where this is going. Oh, King of the Castle over here.
I am the
Mr.
King of the Castle.
5K.
So, here's the thing. There's this little fantasy Overwatch League website called thehigh-noon.gg, and we do a podcast about it. Now they run a community pick'em league and a community unlimited league, and I don't know. I feel like, oh wait, I won Stage 2 of the Unlimited League. I am the champion. I get a little
and you
trophy,
were
internet trophy.
Middle of the pack in Stage 1, by the way.
Exactly. That makes, and I'm in top 10
It was a nice
now.
trip. Yeah. We're both, I mean, I've consistently been in the top 10. You're starting to catch up finally.
Hey, that just makes my win in Stage 2 even that much more impressive. Like, I have a championship. You don't. I'm the Patriots. You're the Bills. Let's just get that out there right now. So that was awesome. Rather unexpected. My head grew 2 sizes.
That's hard to believe. You're not going to be able to find a helmet.
It did. It really did. But no, it was, you know, we had the playoffs this week, and yeah. I'll save it for when we talk about it, but the playoffs were very underwhelming. And I think a lot of people kind of agree with it. As a whole, I'm not talking about the championship game, but as a whole, the playoffs are very underwhelming. So it's starting to get nice. You know, it's 70 degrees in Wisconsin today. That's a beautiful thing. And then we've started to like finalize some more plans for BlizzCon.
Hell yeah!
That where like basically, you know, me, you, Ramses, Blaze, and Bob, all of us are going. So we're starting to finalize plans, get out there, and then it's my birthday tomorrow.
Oh man,
I'm an old bastard.
I mean, well, you are a bastard,
and I'm old now. So, it's, you know, I'm kind of screwed there. But how's your week been?
It's, as a Runaway fan, it's been, pretty rough. But, you know, we did get to see a lot of history in the making, in Contenders Korea. So, yes, Runaway did, in fact, lose. They are not going to the showdown, but we did see a team go, undefeated in the playoffs without dropping a single map, and they weren't running 3-3, so, you know, it was a win-win situation, but I'll get into that later. Across the board, it's been good. We finally got to see the Titans go up against the New York Excelsior, which, to some extent, was probably a little bit unexpected, just due to the trajectory of, the Los Angeles Gladiators and the New York Excelsior. But let's go ahead and jump into the news. So, in general Overwatch news, I'll be honest, it's been fairly light. We are still keeping a close eye on some of the newer stuff that has been popping up in the workshop mode that is still available on the public test realm. And I know they've done like a little bit of quality of life stuff in some of the PTR updates, but I didn't really pay too much attention to that, primarily just because, one, you and I probably are clueless when it comes to most of that sort of stuff. And I don't know how well like some of like the bug talk with like coding and scripting is going to come across on an audio podcast, so we're not going to bother talking about that, but we do have 2 more workshop modes that I do want to talk about, and the first one is from Darwin Streams, who has taken a look at Reaper, specifically his Wraith form ability. Now, going back, Ed, this has been an ability that you and I have always kind of questioned. Same with, him being able to teleport. Like, his toolkit has always been a burden discussion within the community, and whether it's an actual effective toolkit or if he's just kind of a throwaway character. More times than not, that does appear to be the case, especially when you go into the pro scene. But in this workshop mode, basically, the Wraith form has this added ability to phase through walls. Now, if you want to test this out, the import code is DY7MH. But taking a look at this, could this potentially make Reaper viable with how much more you can do with this? Because it lets you phase through the walls. It gives you that ability to surprise Death Blossom people. You're not having to set up these really long flanks, and the payoff for this can feel more immediate compared to what you can currently get out of his toolkit.
I mean, it's cheeky, it's fun. This ability does not make him viable. Let's just get that clear. Because, yes, he can go through walls, but that is very, very situational. Very situational. It's probably would be used more for an escape mechanic. Plain and simple. It would be used for an escape mechanic more so than surprise Death Blossom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it doesn't help one of the key things that is affecting Reaper, and that is he still has to be up close and personal to be effective, and he just isn't there yet. So it's one of those things where it's cheeky, it's fun, it's awesome to play with. If they put it in the game, it'd be awesome, but I just don't see it being like, hey, let's put this over the top for Reaper. Reaper just is not that effective. I think Surefour has proven that over and over again. Linkser has proven it over and over again. So, it's just one of those things where it's a good try. I think more needs to be done, but it looks like a cool ability.
One of these days, Reaper will find his place. Today is not that day.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, one day he will. One day he will. But yeah, it'll probably be the same day, Bastion finds his place.
I mean, he has bunker comps. Basically, Reaper has Anubis B.
Mm-hmm. See, there you go. They're both the same usefulness.
That's it. But anyways, also in the workshop, something that we did see pop up is Flappy Bird. That game that was all the rage back in 2013 before it ran into a bunch of issues legally and had to be removed from Apple's App Store and Google Play. Well, now the game has surfaced in the workshop, and you play as Pharah. So, basically, if you've never played Flappy Bird, the object of the game is, you're controlling a character, and you're going to use the spacebar to jump, or in this case, hover, I guess is the best way to put it with Pharah. And you're looking to avoid floating orbs. Now, the higher you score, the faster the mode gets, and the harder it is for you to stay alive. So if you guys want to check this one out, and this was created by Thriver9, the input code for this one is 4QY7Z. Now, we've seen more and more minigames really starting to pop up. I know there's been Space Invaders, there's been Pawn, now we got Flappy Bird. And it seems like we have a pretty healthy mix on the workshop now between stuff that is mechanics, stuff that's quality of life updates, to actual game modes, to trying to combine multiple game modes, to just mini games. But when are we gonna get the Mario Party experience in the workshop? You have to figure it's gotta happen at some point.
Sooner or later, but the Mario Party experience for instance, which would be amazing, probably takes a crazy amount of coding over putting in Flappy Bird. Like, I mean, the levels of difficulty are probably a little bit different. Going out on a limb there, having Farrah be able to fly up and down through stagnant balls. That sounds dirty. But, like, that coding compared to Overwatch Mario Party. Yeah, Overwatch Mario Party. I think people will put some true, like, long-term effort into some of these game modes and they'll stick. To right now, a lot of these are, like, cheeky and fun. I mean, I already know the one, once this gets up and is on live, and, like, I fully plan on doing game nights for Overwatch League Network. And the one game mode, I don't know if we're talking about it. No, we're not. It's Mystery Heroes. Which everyone knows Mystery Heroes. But you keep your ult charge through death. So you die, you keep your ult charge on the next character you have. So you literally never know when anyone has an ult. So I think that could be a lot of fun.
Well, technically, I would say that would be true about normal Mystery Heroes, because chances are, more times than not, that person does not have an ult.
Right? But you're just like, oh, I just killed them. They came back as Reaper. Crap, they immediately have Death Block.
Right.
Like, it's stuff like that. It could be a lot of fun. It's going to make game nights so much fun. The other one, Spider, actually turned this on to me. There's a lot of, if you're looking to improve your aim, so little backstory on this.
Mr. 5K.
Exactly. So I am not what you would call a computer savant. I know the basics of computer, but I don't know, like, when everyone's talking about, like, hey, what's your DPI? What DPI? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So Spider actually showed me how to look up what my DPI is. And my DPI was 5,000. And he's just like, how the hell do you play Overwatch at 5,000 DPI?
Right.
So
not well, apparently.
Exactly. And the thing is like, he did that review of my Ana play. He's like, everything in that Ana clip now makes sense. He's like, because every inch is like, you're flying across the screen and you can't aim that way. So he introduced me to a bunch of aim modes, like aim helpers that people have made that have been really useful. And I went out and tried them, and they actually are really helpful. Like, they're better than going in, obviously, the new practice range, and they're better than going and doing, like, the free-for-all deathmatch that a lot of people use to warm up. So, you know, definitely check out stuff like that. That is a huge help. And I can already see a difference in my play. I'm still at 1,600 DPI, which I know is still a little high, but that's better than 5,000.
I mean, a lot of things are better than 5,000. Literally anything below that is better than 5,000.
Fair.
That's how that works. But yeah, definitely, as per usual, we will have the import code spreadsheet that the community has been working on in the show notes. And I do know, you know, some of these mini games, some of the aim assist type modes are going to be on there as well, so definitely take a look at that. But moving into this week's hot community topics, we had a couple of things that both involve the Overwatch League. So first up, we do know that the San Francisco Shock parent company, Energy Esports, have disbanded their Contenders team. So all of their players, all of their coaching staff entered free agency. So in regards to the players, that includes people like Kevster, Mir, Smex, Stand1, Byram, and Pooks. Now, this is a team that had basically been around since the early Overwatch days, dating back to the summer of 2016. This was back when Siegel was on the team. This was kind of like when they were like the meme stream team, essentially, back in the day, and they always underwhelmed. They never really finished in the top 8 or anything like that, so they were always kind of like the laughingstock of competitive Overwatch. Well, eventually they kind of like fell out of the limelight, only to return when the Shock picked up this organization for their academy team for Contenders 2018. Now, since being their academy team, this has been a team to make the playoffs in Contenders North America all 4 seasons. They did finish in the top 4 on 2 of those occasions, and most recently, they advanced to the semifinals in Contenders North America West here in the last season, which would be season 1 of 2019. And, you know, this was kind of out of the blue. We don't have any idea what's going to happen to that contender spot. More than likely, one of 2 things is going to happen. They are either going to sell this spot, which seems very unlikely just due to the expansion of Contenders North America with this current year, now that it's, you know, East and West. So chances are this is probably just going to go to another team advancing from Contenders Trial North America, so it's another opportunity for someone to get a chance at Contenders to see how they stack up against some of these other affiliate teams. But, it's just one of those things. NRG has always kind of been around, and, they've been better than what they've been in the past. So there's been a lot of times where, I'd bring up, like, this. They're kind of, like, shying away from being the joke. They've at least had some more consistent performances, but at the end of the day, they've always kind of been a middle-of-the-pack Tier 2 team, but it's still unfortunate to see, a team just up and vanish the way that this one did. But, it's not out of the ordinary for, like, teams to implode or anything like that, but that was not the case with NRG.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, because I think a week before that, there were the rumblings that somebody said, I forget who, but was talking about how Overwatch was going to kind of force all Overwatch League teams to have a contenders team, to have a minor league team. And then they're like, okay, now the Shock just said, screw it, we're getting rid of our contenders team. And we're like, well, they wouldn't do that if they were going to basically force every team to have a contenders team. So
right.
It was weird. And it's not like you said, it's not like a normal esports team folding, like they just ran out of funding. Like, they have a bigger parent company. They have, the San Francisco Shock. NRG is one of the biggest esports names out there. It's just, they just didn't feel like it was the right fit. And, I mean, I don't blame them for wanting, Krusty to have to coach as many people as humanly possible. But it still sucks. Now, out of this team, who do you think fits best into the Overwatch League? Besides the flex support that's already been signed.
Can I take the cop-out answer?
And say none?
None of them?
Okay. I mean, like, I don't know much about NRG, contenders team. I just don't have time to watch contenders. So I didn't know if, like, one of them was, like, a standout player who could get signed on. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of these people will sign on to other contenders teams.
Like, I think, like, the only one that I would even consider would be Mir, but he is 17 right now. He turns 18 in October. But he's from Vietnam, so, there's always, like, these underrepresented countries that will get a look from a certain Overwatch League team in particular, like Boston Uprising. Quick side note, I do know that Uprising Academy signed Titawatt, who was playing for, I want to say it was Giant Lynx, but he's been someone that's been on, is it the Thailand? I'm trying to remember what World Cup team he was on. I'll have to look that up. I'm pretty sure it was like the Taiwan one.
Doesn't surprise me at all. Uprising Boston.
Yeah, it was the Thailand team.
Yeah, they basically just purely sign international talent and hope they can sell them off. Like, we've talked about this before. That's just their MO. They sign people, build them up, then trade them. Like, if Fusions last through the whole season on Boston, I'd be surprised.
It's a revolving door over there. So outside of that, speaking of the Overwatch League, there was something that happened on Mother's Day that drew a lot of attention to the Overwatch League. And, I did not see this live, because we were doing other stuff, but basically what happened is, on Mother's Day, Well, really on any day, we see like that tweet board popping up during the intermissions on Twitch. And on Mother's Day, someone had sent a troll tweet that was featured on the Twitch stream, which included a picture of 2 British serial killers. And, the league's always kind of encouraging people to participate in this. And on Mother's Day, they were saying, like, hey, like, do the hashtag OWL moms to show your appreciation for your parent. And basically, like, the tweet was, my mom can't be with us right now, but I know she'd be happy when the Shock are doing so good. And then it showed a picture of Fred and Rosemary West. Now, this is something that happened in the 90s. This was not something that I knew about, and I know for, like, the general audience, like, they probably had no clue about this, but this was more from, like, the UK, basically. But this was a couple that was charged with murder of, like, 10 people back in the mid-90s, and we haven't heard any sort of statement being issued from the Overwatch League, but there's, like, a lot of people on social media that called it out right away, and people are like, well, why doesn't the Overwatch League vet their tweets before it's being shown on the broadcast? Now, it's important to note that this was not shown on ABC, it was only shown on, the Twitch stream, but I can't imagine, you're gonna have someone sit there and go through literally everything and be like, oh, we can flag this, set it aside, we're not gonna pull that, because, it seems fairly random whatever they decide to put up on screen, but at the end of the day, if you just had reverse image searched it, it came straight from the Wikipedia page, so...
It's one of those things, you can't blame.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. Like, 99.9% of people who watch this can't actually tell who they are. And instantly notice them. Be like, oh, those are serial killers. That's just not likely. Like, especially in the US, where, like, the production company is based, and it being the UK. I mean, you just don't see it. Like, in the US, yes, you could probably tell if it was Charles Manson. He'd have a giant swastika carved into his forehead. Like, you would be able to tell that in the US, but I don't know if you'd be able to tell that over in the UK, because it's just not part of our history. So I cannot blame Blizzard at all for this. And anyone's like, they should vet their tweets. Shut up. Go back to Reddit, where you belong, in the cesspool that is Reddit. Like, requiring them to be like, vet your tweets before you post them. You don't have time. They have 3 minutes, like, in between matches, or 2.5 minutes in between matches. Mm-hmm. Are you just not going to put out any tweets, or are you going to vet every single tweet that's out there? No, you're just going to be like, hey, here's a picture of what looks like a mother and father, and talking about Overwatch League Mother's Day. Like, you're not going to question that kind of stuff. Nobody in their right mind really would. So, thankfully it wasn't on ABC, so it doesn't get the national attention from the, oh my god, I can't believe they put video games on ABC. What is our world coming to? They're showing just violence and all that stuff. But they would have had a field day with it. But it's just, I don't know. It's the person who did it is just a bad person, because right. they posted it with the intent of Blizzard putting it on their broadcast. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just a shitty person if that is your goal. But that is honestly, that's half the internet nowadays. Sorry, internet. Like,
literally half the internet.
Prove me I'm wrong. Like, people do stuff to spite other people on the internet because they can. Mm-hmm. And that is what this person did. So, like, if anyone wants to be mad, go back, watch it, see who posted it, because the whatever name on Twitter, and harass them. Don't harass Blizzard.
Right.
It wasn't anything that they did.
I just realized that when I sent out that tweet, I put 2222. I was like, that's not right.
There's 8 people?
Yeah, apparently not. We were going to 8 people per team.
Playing. It's a shocker. We're actually going to do... and it's going to be 2 tanks, 2 supports,
2 DPS and 2 flex.
Yes.
That's how that works. I mean, in some cases, some of these teams are going to need 2 additional players just to stand a chance to win some games.
Outlaws will need their whole roster plus the coach play to beat the Mayhem.
But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into some Overwatch League discussion. And first up, we got a little bit of news coming out of the Overwatch League and partnership camp, because Activision Blizzard have partnered with Upper Deck to produce trading cards for the Overwatch League. Now, this is part of a multi-year deal coinciding with Upper Deck's 30th anniversary, and the first set of Overwatch League cards are going to be hitting the shelves on June 19th. Now, this is going to feature teams and players from the inaugural season of the Overwatch League, and I know they're doing like a preview and like themed cards for the All-Star event that's going on this week. So the base set has 125 different cards, which is going to feature, you know, the 12 inaugural teams. And this is not the first time that we've seen Activision Blizzard partner in with Upper Deck, as they did do the World of Warcraft trading card game. Now, I don't know about you, Ed, but like when I look at this stuff, like, it's like, yeah, okay, that's okay. It kind of like brings me back to, well, like the 90s obviously had, like, so many, like, overproduced baseball cards, and, like, everyone would have, like, the full sets. But there was a game that came out in the early 2000s by Wizards of the Coast that I was talking with the Blevins about, and that was MLB Showdown, which basically combined kind of like D&D aspects with baseball. That dealt a lot with stats. You would roll a die, and, you know, depending on how the stats would weigh out, that would be, you know, if you would get, like, a walk, or a double, or home run, or whatever, and, like, maybe down the line, that might be something that we are going to see, but the whole trading card game aspect really intrigues me, and who knows, maybe this could tie into fantasy down the line, but I thought it was weird that they're like, okay, we're just gonna do the inaugural season, but it's like, but some of these players aren't even in the league anymore. Some of them aren't even on the same team. So are they just going based off of the initial, like, rosters? Are they going to wait till the end of the season where teams finish? I don't know. But you're going to have, like, autograph cards and things like that, foils in this card set. But I feel like the price point is really going to be the thing that's going to determine whether or not I'm going to go out and consider purchasing some packs, or even a booster box at that rate. But I don't think right now, based off of what I've heard, that this is going to be an immediate purchase for me as of yet.
This is where we disagree. This is going to be an immediate purchase for me. I was a hardcore card collector growing up. Because, like, I mean, as an old fart, this was my entertainment growing up. Like, baseball cards, football cards. I still have sleeves and binders full of football and baseball cards still tucked away. I still have a complete set of 1991-92 MLB Upper Deck baseball cards. Unopened, still sealed. And I will not open that, even though Frank Thomas rookie card is in there. And that is worth some money. Like, here's the thing. I collect that kind of stuff because it's fun.
Right.
You're looking for, like, a booster pack. It's probably going to be $2.99 for a booster pack.
Now, at, like, $3.50 at the most in a lot of situations.
Exactly. That's nothing. If I go to I don't go to Walmart. Target. If I go to Target and they have, like, an actual card, like, playing, like, card Pokemon, Digimon,
Magic.
Magic the Gathering.
Probably the biggest one.
Why did I draw a blank on that? They have a whole section dedicated to that. They would probably be there, and I'll go there and I'll just be like, hi, all the packs of cards on this shelf, yoink, right into my cart, and have fun, because I have the extra sleeves and the binders to keep them safe and protected.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, so do I, because there are still times where, like, I will go out and buy Pokemon cards, even still to this day.
Exactly. So, and it's just fun. Like, and you want to call it a trading card game. you're not trading shit.
No.
Like, you don't go over like, I'll give you this for this. No, you're not doing that. You're just like, okay, this is really awesome to have. Now, the reason I would say like they're doing last season is because they're probably going to go more towards at the end of the season, go back and print off the cards because then you can put stats on the back.
Yeah, I can see that.
So like they probably went to print off season 1 with the stats on the back, and it'd probably be very basic. Deals per minute.
Yeah, probably like the average per 10 minutes, like we do get on the website.
Yeah,
assuming the information is there on the API.
True. Yeah, as long as they don't trust Blizzard's mobile site, they're good to go. Be like, but no, I'm gonna buy the hell out of these things, and I couldn't be happier. Like once I saw this, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Now I will say, if some of our listeners are going to be at the All-Star event, and you happen to pick up some of these cards, please send us a picture of what they look like, because I don't know if they're actually going to like post that anywhere, and I just want to see what we're going to be in store for. And if they happen to want to give them up, maybe one of us will look at purchasing them all.
Right? I mean, it is my birthday tomorrow, so
I got you nothing.
Throwing it up there. Not begging for Upper Deck Overwatch League cards, but I kind of am. So
he is and he is not.
Yeah, less on the less not, and more on the I am.
I love the fact though that I know for a fact that I was seeing you playing the MTG Arena game, and then you forget Magic.
I literally was playing it like 45 minutes.
Yeah, so
and it's just like, ooh, awkward.
Yeah,
how did I forget that? Oh,
I know we're gonna have some listeners out there that are not going to let you live that
down. You know what? I haven't had a complaint against me in a while.
And it's gonna be about trading card games of all things.
If I get a complaint about trading card games, I'm cool with that.
But anyways, outside of this deal, there was also a deal in place between the LA Valiant and the Florida Mayhem, so a little bit of a trade. So the LA Valiant have sent Fate, their main tank, over to the Florida Mayhem in exchange for McGravy, who was the benched off-tank player since, Mayhem went all-Korean. And then from Mayhem Academy, being sent over to the Valiant, you have main tank, Fact Fiction, and DPS player Shax. Now, Fate, looking back, he's been a pretty integral part of the Valiant since their inception. He was the main tank for the South Korea World Cup team here in the last year, en route to another South Korea win, as per usual, because all hail our Korean overlords. But Fact Fiction will be making his Overwatch League return after being dropped by the Houston Outlaws last season. Now, both of these sides have had some pretty hefty struggles so far in Season 2. You have the Florida Mayhem, who are currently rocking that 1-13 record. Probably need that extra 2 people in the 2-2-2-2 log that I typoed earlier. And then you have the Los Angeles Valiant, who not doing too much better. They're currently ranked 17th out of 20th in the league at 3-11. Now, with that being said, if you're the Mayhem, this addresses an immediate need in that main tank position, because Swan has been very shaky. But that's a team that is still in the process of making other moves, one of which has already happened, another one which has been reported on but hasn't been made official as of yet. But we'll probably touch up on that more when it is made official. But across the board, you're essentially getting a 1-for-1 trade, at least in players that could potentially immediately start, at least for the main tank position. Because I don't think we're going to see, Kuki entering the fold again for main tank for the LA Valiant. But, you get McGravy, who chances are is not going to see too much play time, because, you have Space, who is still one of the top Western D.Va players, or just tanks in general, in the Overwatch League. And then you have Shax, who does share a lot of similar heroes with some of the other DPS on the Valiant. But, there is a chance that Shax could kind of be, the X factor in all of this, where, who knows, there might be a situation that the Valiant get 2 starters out of this deal as opposed to just 2 bench players.
Yeah, no, like that's the one thing everyone, the Fate versus Perfect Fiction. Like everyone's talking about that. Like, yes, obviously they traded tanks, so Fiction's going to be the main tank for the Valiant, Fate's going to be the main tank for the Mayhem. But I think the key to this is Shaxx. I truly believe with Valiant moving more towards a Western lineup, obvious by this trade, I think they're going to go with, the Agilities Shaxx duo on DPS. So, like, it's one of those things that just makes sense because they're not truly competing on a lot of heroes. He takes over as a better Bunny. It's like Shaxx and Bunny played kind of DPS wise, and Bunny just isn't playing because I feel he's probably just not good on 3-3. So I think Shaxx could be the big win for this. I love this trade for both teams. Like, I think this was a phenomenal trade. Like, Mayhem got the best player in the deal. I think Fate is the best player in the whole deal. I don't think many people will argue that that's not the case. But the Valiant got more value. Like, they probably got 2 starters out of this, and then a high-end quality backup. And if they truly, like, one thing people don't realize, if the Valiant truly end up loving McGravy on the flex tank, yes, I know it's crazy to think that they would trade Space, but the amount of value they could get back for Space
is fairly high.
It could tilt that whole team upwards.
Yeah, and you could honestly say the same thing for Izayaki as trade bait as well.
Yeah, that's another one that I'm kind of interested to see what happens, because when you really think about them going to a Western roster, you have Izayaki still in there, who is 100% not a Western player. He is Korean. Are they going to stick with him on flex support, or are they going to get rid of him, like trade him for a Western flex support? Like, I always thought, like, if Valiant went full on Western, Sleepy was the obvious choice for them to nab from the shop, but then he got traded to the Justice.
I would say there's one other person that I could see them targeting that is on an academy team.
Who's that?
Crimzo.
Okay, Crimzo's one too.
He's Canadian. He counts.
He kind of.
I mean,
he's like 3/4 of counting, but you know what I mean. Like, that would be smart, but like, they could trade Izayaki for a massive upgrade elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like, so it'll be interesting to see what they do, and we don't know how good Izayaki plays with English being the main language communicated. Because remember, the Valiant don't even have a Korean translator. I think they got rid of their Korean translator. I think that happened a couple episodes ago that we talked about. So, like, I don't know. Izayaki could bring a lot back. Space could bring a lot back. Who knows? Custer could bring a lot back.
Assuming he's not, talking about news.
Right? I mean, like, you could go out and get somebody like, I don't know, Elk. Trade for Elk. Bring Elk in as your main support instead of Custa. Because Elk should probably be starting. But he's just kind of bench time. And
I feel like so much of that just depends on what their plan with Alarm is. Because I would not be surprised if they just move forward with Elk and Alarm as the DPS, or with the support duo. I was like DPS duo. Alarm is practically a DPS
and then move on from Neptuno and Boombox, because it would save them a lot of money, honestly, to go with Elk and Alarm. And Elk and Alarm are, I mean, the reason Fusion University was so successful, in my opinion, was Elk and Alarm.
Yeah.
Like, they were hands down the best support
Yeah,
duo.
it was a combination of the staff around that team and then that duo on the back line.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things Valiant could do here, but I think it's pretty clear they're going for a Western team, and it's pretty clear the Mayhem are going for an all-Korean team, as screwed up as that might be.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't resulted in the wins as of yet, but speaking of the Mayhem, this is going to tie into our energy talk. They did pick up one of those release energy players, that being Flex Support Byram. Now, this has been someone that has been competing since 2017, and he joined Energy to play in North America Contenders. Now, that being said, before Energy, he was on Blossom, but before Contenders Korea 2018, he was kicked from the team due to boosting, which of course is a huge deal in Korea. Now, I know there's been a lot of stuff on the rumor mill about him potentially being more than one person, but regardless, boosting is always a red flag. But this was kind of like one of those sign-ins that, you and I have been talking about, like, we don't really think that they needed to address the flex support role, just seeing the improvement that we have seen from Hagopen, but this goes a little bit further, because I know Hagopen had, like, deleted a tweet that was, I think, sent yesterday, and he's, like, removed any note about Florida Mayhem from his Twitter account. So that kind of like got the ball rolling. There's a lot of speculation that he's no longer going to be with the team. Now, looking at one of the reports going around, they are looking at signing a couple of players from WGS Armament from Contenders Korea, as well as someone from, I want to say it was O2 Blast.
Yep,
so they're looking at signing 3 players, one of which is an additional flex support. Another one being Karine, who is a really fun Reinhardt player, who I've loved to watch play in Contenders Korea. But Hagopen looks to be on the outs, and that's kind of like throwing a loop into this, because initially we kind of looked at this and be like, well, okay. Now it's starting to make a little bit more sense now that we start to see some of these other pieces kind of falling into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, we saw him get picked up, and we're just like, okay, 100% purely a backup. Like, a backup flex support. And the importance of backup players has really been, shined on this season. Like, a lot of people are rotating out players specifically for maps, so on and so forth. So the chance of getting backup players is high, or is really important. So we're like, okay, whatever. Now the rumblings that, hey, they signed another flex support from Korea, and there's all this stuff with Hagopen. It's like, okay, why are you getting rid of Hagopen? He's like one of the few bright spots of that team, and I just don't know what the Mayhem are doing at this point, because one of the other ones, I'm horrible with the names, but the main tank they just picked up, or rumored to be picked up,
Karine.
They just traded for Fate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you're picking him up to be a backup main tank, but then you already also have a backup main tank on the team who was starting your starter before you got Fate. So you also did get a backup flex tank, or a main flex tank, because Zephyr's just god awful for the Mayhem. It's just I don't get what's going on down there in Florida. Like, at every stage, they're just basically like, all right, let's completely redo the roster and throw everything into a blender and see what works.
Well, here's the thing, Ed. This is Florida. You know how many times you just randomly look at news and you're like, oh, this happened in Florida, and you're like, I'm not even that surprised anymore. There's so many stories about Florida Man that
Florida Man took bath salts and ate someone's face.
Right, so none of this should come as a surprise that it is happening in Florida, but it does kind of like make you wonder, at what point, when you're constantly shuffling pieces around, are you going to give someone a fair shake, or just find something that actually works with so many moving parts?
I mean, we should have seen this coming, like every other team. So this is a city-based Overwatch League, based on cities. Who's the one freaking team that's like, you know what? Nope, we're taking the whole state.
Mhm.
They don't even have a home city. Like, it's like Atlanta, New York, Guangzhou, Paris, Florida. Where in Florida? We don't know yet.
All of it.
Yeah, we're just gonna go with all of Florida. It could be Jacksonville, possibly the most boring town ever. It could be the middle of the state where you just have swamp people. And then you have Orlando, which is Disney World, which I'm guessing it's going to be Orlando. But it's just this organization is right now is in shambles. It's taking over for Shanghai of last year as being just a crappy team and organization. Shanghai actually turned it around and has become very respectable. Florida went the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, it's funny, you go out and sign Contu Panther, and suddenly you're able to win some games. And actually make stage playoffs for a change for the first time ever, and have a winning record for the first time ever.
Right? It's
strange.
Weird. Not, hey, we're going to sign half Western players, and then after one stage be like, we're going all Korean. And then after the next stage be like, hey, we're going all other Koreans. No, Florida. Thank God the Outlaws are in the league right now, because if the Outlaws weren't in the league right now, you would be the butt of all my jokes.
Well, give it time. Give
there.
it some time, Ed, because who knows? The Outlaws probably aren't going to be a team next year.
Yes, and if God help us if they actually.
I hope. Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
And I was forced to cheer for them. I could never live that down. I couldn't, but I'd have to own it because the Hanzo Spark are my team right now.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the San Francisco Shock. I don't have a team right now,
Right.
because I'm waiting for a Chicago team. The second we get a Chicago team, 100% all in. I hope all other teams suck horribly.
Yeah,
I hope all the players on every other non-Chicago team just suck.
Mel and Ramses are just sitting there like, oh, I hope it happens. just out of pure spite and being like, you gotta do it now.
There's a new Chicago team in the first edition. They Ruckus. Be like, crap. Dang it. But yeah, it's just this organization just isn't run right.
And it hasn't been since the inaugural season, since they were so shortchanged.
And there's a lot of organizations in the Overwatch League that just aren't run like a typical organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like Boston Uprising is not run. It's a crappy organization. Let's get that straight. Every player that's left has kind of hinted that it's just a crappy organization to work for.
And they've done better.
Yeah, and they've done so much better because, they've made good decisions. Florida is a crappy organization that has made bad decisions. That's a bad combo to have. So, that's my mayhem rant.
So, moving on, of course, this week we do have the Overwatch League All-Star event. So just as a reminder, that event does kick off today. We are recording on Wednesday, May 15th, and, it starts in, a little bit over an hour at this point. So just as a reminder, on tap for tonight, we do have, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific time, the Talent Takedown. Now, you might be wondering, well, who is part of the Talent Takedown? Well, I got you covered. So for the Atlantic All-Star team, that's if you can even call these players All-Stars, because, they're casters. And there's a couple other people. There's analysts and translators, whatever. Besides the point. So for Atlantic, you have the Puck Fist. Puckett. You have Side Throw, Sideshow. Zoe, Bren. Monte Cristo, the biggest anime villain of all time in Overwatch League. Doa and Hexagrams. And then, opposite of them, for the Pacific, you have Danny Lim, Mr. X, and whatever box he takes with him. You have Uber, Wolf, Achilleos, Mika Burton, and Sembler. Okay, so Ed, we know the teams. We know who is relatively decent, and we also know who's relatively terrible at Overwatch. Who do you feel like came out ahead in regards to the drawn teams at this point?
As much as people want to troll it, I did better. I think the reason I say that is watching streams, Puckett is like a natural born leader.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just what he does. He's a natural born leader, and then you have important positions taken care of. So you have Sideshow, who's basically a pure Zenyatta player. Well, you have your flex support there. You have Zoe, who's a main tank Reinhardt player.
Well, she's probably going to be stuck on Mercy duty, if I'm being honest.
Because of Monty. Because Monty, I think, only plays like Reinhardt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Hexagrams is a good player. And Bren is even a good player. Like, good DPS players. So it will be interesting to see. Like, we haven't seen Danny or Misha or Wolf or Kilos play yet, so we don't know how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing about the talent takedown is the casting trio. And I couldn't have asked for a better cast occur. So you get the return of the chosen one, Golden Boy. He will be coming back to cast
national treasure.
National
global
treasure
icon. You didn't hype it up enough.
Global icon. T-Mobile MVP. Golden Boy.
And the hype video that he did was amazing.
It was. But then he has two of the most eccentric Overwatch League players with him. So you have Super and Dogman on the desk with Golden Boy. Like, you couldn't have asked for anything better than that. And this honestly is the highlight of the Overwatch League All-Star Week. Like, I honestly don't care about the actual All-Star game. Because it's just, once you put Pine, who hasn't played, in there, I'm just like, you know what? I know it's a fan vote.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm a fan of if the All-Star should be the best players of that year. This is not the best players of this year. The Talent Takedown and the Widowmaker duel, we'll get to that in a second, just are like the highlights of it. So I'm super excited to see that tonight and to see how much Super and Dogman just trash talk the casters.
I swear, if we get a Reaper pick, those two in particular are never going to let them hear the end of it.
or Sombra pick with Super. He'll be like, only weak people pick Sombra.
Now that being said, when I look at these teams, you have Puckett and Bren for a DPS duo. For Atlantic, which is actually pretty good. I don't know who would be the other DPS on Pacific. Mr. X would definitely be one of them. I don't know who would be his duo partner. But that being said, who knows what they're even going to be playing. It honestly is probably going to be 3-3, and I feel like that could take a lot of the wind out of the sails of the Atlantic Division. But there's too many unknowns in the Pacific right now, so you're basically having to rely on Mr. X on the DPS, and then Semler, who, more than likely, based off of what we have seen in the past, is probably going to be playing the diva role on this team, because we did see a lot of Semler bombs in the last one. But, the Talent Takedown is more about the trash talk than anything, and I'm looking forward to the casting in that. But moving on to the next event for tonight, this is at 7:15 p.m. Pacific time. We have the Widowmaker 1v1 quarterfinals and semifinals. So we have 4 players from each division, all of which are not Widowmaker players or DPS players for that matter. So for the Atlantic, and I'll tell you the seed for each one. So as a top seed, you have Pine. Second seed, you have Carpe. Third seed being Nene. And then the 4th seed is your Lord and Savior, Jonak. Yeah. I don't know if you're muted or...
No, I'm not.
You're just mouthing off. Flabbergasted.
Why? Let's just go with why.
Here's the thing. Like, I'm okay with 3 of these. Like, I figured like some of the flex supports would be picked, but it's just like I'd rather just see Widowmaker players in this.
Right? Like, there's so many. Like, all right, let's look at who they're missing on the Atlantic side. All right, let's see here. I don't know. Saya player? He's pretty good at this Widowmaker thing, considering that's what he's known for. How about Prophet?
Mm-hmm.
Prophet? Pretty decent on that Widowmaker. Why do you have to put flex supports in there? Like, it's just going to be, no offense, it's going to be an easy win for whoever. You know, whoever decides to play Jonak the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's other players. I mean, who says you can only invite people to the Widowmaker 1v1 that are voted into the All-Star game? 2. You know what I mean? Like, what about, Color Hex? Because Color Hex's Widowmaker was actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, Happy.
Bring Color Hex in. Bring Happy in. How about you bring the defending champion back?
Mm-hmm. That would be Surefour for people that aren't aware.
Yes, sorry, Surefour. Like, yes, he's not playing, but neither's Pine. But why not bring him back to defend his championship? Like, it's cheeky, it's fun. Again, it's going to be a blast regardless, but I'm just like, I don't have as much of a problem with Jonak as I do with, you'll get into who's on the Pacific team.
Okay, well, speaking of the Pacific, in the top seed you have Violet from the San Francisco Shock. At 2 you have Fleta. 3rd is Shu, and then 4th you have DM. Now, here's the thing. I so want Shu to just come in and destroy everyone in this. I don't think that's going to happen, but, like, if I had a dark horse, like, if any of the flex supports are going to win it, and, like, I know we've seen Violet pop off, we've seen Jonak pop off, but Shu, like, I'm all aboard the Shu train. Like, we've been a big fan of his Ana play, with the Guangzhou Charge. I want to see him do well in this. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if we get the Carpe DM Widowmaker 1v1 for, like, the finals, that would be, like, the ultimate, like, finals that we could get out of this lot, I would say. But that being said, you look at the 2 sides, and Atlantic definitely has, like, the better of the 4, I would say. But, they're having to go. It's not always like Atlanta versus Pacific. That only happens in the finals, so you're not going to see, a potential match between the 2 sides until we get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, Atlantic definitely. Just because, well, they have less support players on Widowmaker. I mean, the sneaky person out of this, I think, is Nene.
Mm-hmm.
Because people probably don't see Nene as, like, a Widowmaker.
Yeah, and he was a Widowmaker player on XL too before he got put in, Sombra and, like, Zarya roles, basically.
Yeah. So it would be awesome. You know what would be amazing? If, like, Violet took out Pine. That would be great. Like, I know they couldn't face it up until the championships.
Well, Pine underperformed in the last one, so that honestly, that's a legit chance of happening again, regardless of who he faces.
I mean, Pine underperforms overall. Otherwise, he wouldn't be riding the Pine.
Right. That is also true.
But, like, I kind of want to see one of the support players, like, Shu take down Dio. All right, that's awesome. Jonak taking down Pine would be epic. Because you know what? They're on the same team, and Jonak could flaunt that over Pine every single day in scrims. Like, he'd be scrimming with Pine and be like, you sure you don't want me to go on Widowmaker? You go on Zenyatta? I am better than you, right? Like, he could flex his muscles there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it will be fun. Regardless, it will be fun. It went, surprisingly, it went quicker than I thought it would last year when we watched it.
Yeah, but there was still, like, it still felt like it was really long based on how many rounds they were doing, so I hope that they tweak that number a little bit.
No, that would be awesome. It's just, this is the one that a lot of people are. Thank God they're not doing Anna. That was boring. But no matter what happens, make sure you at least tune in on Twitch, because double drops for Overwatch League tokens are active for the All-Star game.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the Command Center is free trial for the All-Star week as well. So if you don't have the All Access Pass, you could, get a first look at that as well. But moving on, after the Widowmaker 1v1 quarters and semis, we have the All-Star Arcade modes that start at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Time. So we start with the Shimada Showdown on Hanamura with 3 Genjis, 3 Hanzos on both sides. And then we'll go to 6v6 supports only over on Nepal, 6v6 damage only on Hollywood, 6v6 McCree only on Route 66, and you probably already know what time that's going to be. We have 6v6 no tanks on Blizzard World. So, again, these were stuff that the fans voted on. Really not too much of interest here. I'm looking forward to the Shimada one on Hanamura, very fitting, given who's involved and also what map it's on. But outside of that, it's just okay, it's whatever, but I'm really hoping next year the arcade mode just get replaced with workshop shenanigans.
Yeah, I think that would be really the Overwatch League, is take some of the popular workshops, even honestly, getting fan created workshops in there, not Blizzard created.
Well, even if they did gun game, that would be better than every single mode that they have done this year.
Yeah, and I can see them doing that next year. It was too soon to happen, because workshop technically isn't even live yet.
No. So
I'm fine with that. But some of these are pretty lame. Honestly, I have no interest in 6v6 supports only, or 6v6 Genji versus Hanzo. They're cheeky, they're fun, but so be it. And I don't know, is the starters in the All-Star game, do they have to play in the first map? Is the first map set?
You see, I don't know about that, because the only thing that we really know about the actual All-Star game is everyone has to play at least one map. I don't know if that's reflected in these other modes that are being played.
If you're a starter in any other All-Star game, you start the match playing. So in this 6v6 Genji versus Hanzo, are we gonna see Arc on Hanzo? You know what I mean? Or can they is it just in name only that they're starters? So it will be interesting. It will be fun. I like that they have it in the middle of the season, instead of at the end.
So wrapping up tonight at 10:30 p.m. Pacific time, we do with the finals of the Widowmaker 1v1. Okay, Ed, so last year, the Pacific, they came out on top. It was Surefour of the LA Gladiators. Surefour nowhere to be seen in the Widow 1v1. So, looking at the field, what do you predict is going to be the finals, and who do you think is going to come out on top when all is said and done?
Carpe versus DM. Carpe will... I think Carpe has the obvious favorite in all of this, because it's just... He's already regarded as one of the top Widowmaker players in Overwatch League. And when he's going up against the likes of Violet, Jonak, and Shu, I don't really know that it's much of a competition. So, Carpe versus DM, Carpe on top.
See, I would love to see that, but the the pessimist in me is I want Nene to just come in and be yeah, that's right, I play Widow too, because we haven't got to see it yet, and everyone doesn't immediately think Widowmaker when they think of him as a player. So I'm pulling for Nene, and I want to see him go up against Fleta. Fleta's kind of in the same position. Everyone's where's Fleta? He hasn't been playing. He's been permabench, essentially, on Seoul Dynasty. And, this could be a perfect opportunity for Fleta to maybe earn some playing time should this 2-2-2 meta surface in Stage 3, where we could see a lot of double sniper compositions. should that Rolock go through. So I'm hoping for Nene versus Fleta. I am gonna root for Nene when all is said and done, out of the field. Like, here's the thing, Carpe and Pine last year disappointed, and I feel like that's just gonna add extra pressure to both of them. And I feel like they're gonna crumble again. I don't know why. Like, I don't think the competition this year has as many, like, top caliber Widowmaker players, but I will just laugh if they fail to reach the finals and just underperform again, like they did last season.
Yeah, part of me also wants Violet to just win it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it would be hilarious
if a flex support just comes in,
Flex
strolls in.
He's like, you know what? I'm so good on Widowmaker, but I'm even better on Zenyatta.
Right.
Like, suck it.
So, just as a reminder, we do have the official All-Star game that will be dropping tomorrow. That is Thursday. This starts at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and this is a first to 4 map wins, and the map order that this goes in. We start on Control, which is predetermined, just like in the Overwatch League. You'll have the losers picking the map at that point based on the map pool, so we go Control, Hybrid, Assault, Escort, circling back to Control, to Hybrid, to Escort. Now, I don't think it's going to go that long, but all 18 players from each team must play at least one map. Now, again, you know, it's an all-star game. We expect some cheeky shenanigans. Maybe people aren't going to be playing their respective roles. Maybe they are. Maybe they're going to try to make Reaper happen, much to our dismay. You never know. Maybe they'll just say, you know what, we're just not going to run 3-3. Because who wants to see 3-3?
Is there any chance in God's green earth that Bumper plays tank?
I want to see him only play DPS in this.
Like, I want to just see him on Torbjorn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. So
Hammer only.
Hammer only. You know what would have been actually really cool is if they could have brought in one of these specialized matches, not in the main All-Star game, but in the specialized matches, they brought Defran in.
Mm-hmm.
Like as the ultimate fan favorite, and then played Tor. That would have been cool. But no, Bumper, there's zero chance I think Bumper plays tank.
Give the fans what they want. We want Bumper DPS.
Like, alright, I don't know my leagues that well, but yeah, you can run Bumper with MN. So you have your ball, your hamster, you bring in Bumper, and then he plays DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Win-win. There you go. I should be the coach. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, just make sure your players have the right DPI.
As a former unlimited stage 2 champion in fantasy Overwatch League, I deem this acceptable.
Okay.
Can I introduce myself as that from here on out? Like, it's Edenar, former unlimited fantasy Overwatch League champion.
Where have I heard like this introduction before from one of our co-hosts? Oh, that's right. That was Bob. As the former Masters player. Yes.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't even realize. But you know what? Bob's a smart man. I think he's on to something. You know, and God help you if I ever win, if I win one of the season tournaments. Oh, you guys will not be shut me up.
Here's what I want. At the end of the Unlimited, I want both of us to be finishing in the top 5. Just so we can shut everyone up at that point. But anyways, let's talk Stage 2 playoffs. So, that happened. So just going through the quarterfinals really quick in regards to the results. We saw the Shock defeat the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. The Hangzhou Spark defeated the London Spitfire, also 3-1. And then we got a pair of 3-0s with the NYXL destroying the LA Gladiators. And the Vancouver Titans swept Dallas Fuel 3-0. So, quick takeaways from the quarterfinal matches. For one, Shock map streak came to an end immediately. I was like, okay, this might be a bad omen. That didn't happen, more on that later. But the Dragons really got exposed with the way that they play Overwatch, because they tend to decide, like, hey, we're not going to run D.Va. Oh, we also don't have Speed Boost because we don't like to run Lucio. And then you just have Sinatraa, who has a Speed Aura, who is just chasing everyone down. And you see, like, the Dragons trying to escape, but they can't because they can't run fast enough. And so it was just like Sinatraa just being an absolute menace in here. So there was also a lot of disconnect with the Pharmercy from the Shanghai Dragons, a lot of over-reliance on Sombra engages with EMP or off of the Pharah Barrage with Dean. That being said, Dean had an awesome series in this, and Violet was getting his ass handed to him by Dean throughout all of that series. But, you know, the Dragons, you can't really be too upset. You know, this is a huge turnaround for this team. It was nice to see them make the playoffs. And, you know, they at least took a map as opposed to, you know, getting swept like they did in the week prior. Granted, you know, the week prior, they... Honestly, I felt like that match was closer than this one actually was. Outside of that, the Spark and the Spitfire game, I'm still having a hard time digesting this series in particular, because I don't know how much of it was Spark playing up and how much of it was just the Spitfire kind of shit in the bed. Like, the Spitfire are so wishy-washy, I don't know which version of this team is going to show up. They did not have that clutch factor that we're used to seeing from them in the playoffs, but it just felt like Gesture was basically, like, null and void in this. You had Goushway, who was in Gesture's head, and he just couldn't seem to get anything done, and London ended up getting full held 3 times in a row, which is not something that I would have expected. And then you have, like, the weird decision not to send the Spark to Anubis, where they've only won once out of 6 times. It's like, I didn't understand that, but I'm really happy to see the Spark starting to piece things together. It seems like that language barrier has been a thing of the past now. Goushway is really starting to reach that final form, as we always hype him up to have. So I was happy to see that. And then the Gladiators happened. So the Gladiators are an interesting team. We felt like this is a team that has been getting their feet underneath them. They have still yet to win a playoff game. And when I look at this team, there is one position in particular that is setting them back in this current meta. And that is their Brigbot in Hydration. Now, a lot of times, what was happening was Hydration was getting picked off in these neutral fights, and then you had Meko coming in and basically splitting up the Gladiators' attention with his positioning, and New York Excelsior really took this passive approach until that split happened, and then they would all pounce on the Gladiators at that point. So, you know, I hoped that this was going to be a closer series. This was one that I was more hyped for compared to the rest of the quarterfinals, and it was just so one-sided. It was a letdown. Like, I wanted to see more from Decay. I wanted to see more just from the Gladiators as a whole, and we didn't get that. And then, at least we got to see the Big 3 match, right? In 2 different cases, but it was just one of those things. And then the Fuel got stomped also. So you basically had, you know, one day at quarterfinals that both ended in 3-1, and then the other one were both stomps, and it ended in under 2.5 hours.
Yeah, the first 2 days of the playoffs, now granted, there was a pretty big upset, like you said, Spark Spitfire, but even the Spark over the Spitfire was still kind of a whooping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first 2 days of the playoffs sucked. Let's just be outright here. The first 3 days of the playoffs just sucked. Like, there were no truly good matches. The best probably was the Spark versus the Spitfire, just because the Spark were upsetting the Spitfire at that moment. You know, Shock, they gave up a map to Shanghai. Fine, dandy, great, grand, wonderful. there was no way Shanghai was winning. And that was watched it. The New York Excelsior versus Gladiators, which everyone predicted to be a super close match, myself included. I expected more out of the Gladiators, and it just wasn't there. I think they just need a little bit more. I think they need to be at a non-3-3 for the Gladiators to truly be efficient. Because like you were talking about, hydration, brink jail, horrible. Like that's definite weakness of that team, and they have no brink player that's actually even really good. But you know they get 3-0'd by New York. Vancouver versus Dallas was just a joke. It was. I mean, no knock against Dallas, who we'll talk about them when we get to our main topic. At least I will. But like, they've excelled. They've done better than I thought. But going up against Vancouver and they're 3-3, they just got steamrolled.
Yeah, the only really notable thing in that series was the Kings' road defense by the Titans when Bumper comes out on the Roadhog and just gets consecutive environmental kills with the hook.
Exactly. Like, it was just an ugly first 2 days. And the third day, and I'll just knock this out right you know, Shock beat the Spark 4-0 Titans. The ever-hyped Titans versus New York Excelsior. Titans won 4-1. Like, and it wasn't a close 4-1. Like, yes, New York took a map. It still was not a close 4. Like, we talk about how, there's top 3-4 teams in the league. There's a top 2 teams in the league. And New York is not one of the top teams. And I don't think you can put them there. You put them at the same level right now as probably the Gladiators and Spitfire. Really.
It's so hard to say, because it's like I felt like at least in the Titan series, there were aspects. There was one player in particular that was playing a hell of a series in mono on the main tank position, and I felt like the way that team plays, I would still say, like, you have the S tier, which are the big two in the Titans and the Shock. NYXL would probably still be A tier, and then we would probably go to the like, Spitfire and, Gladiators, and maybe... See, like, I want to put the Spark in there, but there's just... So many of these matches kind of played out the same way, where the main tank just got in the other tank's head. And that happened in the Shock Spark game, that happened in the Titans Excelsior game, and, you know, you look at how the Spark fared against the Shock, they basically got Spitfired in this series, because Spark only kept 3 points in those 4 maps. Like, they did not have an offense.
Here's the thing with the Spark. It's a matter of Gushue is the best Winston. Come at me. He's the best Winston in the league. Gesture's the only one who can come close. And I don't even know if it's that close. So Gushue, when he was up against the Spitfire and Gesture, they played a lot of Reinhardt, a lot of Winston. And that's when the Spark took advantage and they were winning. But when he went up against the Shock, it was more like Super's like, no, I'm not going on Winston. I'm sticking on Reinhardt. You come at me. Like, I'm better than you. You have to play to my level. I'm not coming down to your type of thing. And when Gushue has to go on Reinhardt, that's where he really gets screwed.
Right.
He's a below average Reinhardt, I'd say. But he's a massively above average. Like, you can't bench Gushue just because you're playing Reinhardt, because honestly, a lot of maps you could just play Winston and win, except against teams like the Shock and the Titans.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate, because it was like a tale of 2 Spark teams, because, you know, you look at Sinatra, who, I mean, obviously this was a stomp, but he posted 93 eliminations, and he only died 7 times in those 4 maps, and it felt like there were a lot of times where the Spark would just get in spawn camped, where they'd have to use both support ultras to make it out of the spawn. There were times when, you know, the Earthshatter or the Grav would come out for the Spark, and they just couldn't capitalize. And most of those situations. We got to see, Violet pop out on Widowmaker on Gibraltar and just hit consecutive headshots as the spawn doors open, and that kind of set up the steamroll in that map in particular. But that series as a whole, at least for these playoffs, honestly felt like the most deflating performance, from a team that we did see, because it was very dominant and more one-sided. Probably the most one-sided playoff match we've ever had in the Overwatch League.
No, 100%. It was an ugly, and I hate to say that, my perspective, but it was super one-sided.
I mean, it was one-sided for Super, for sure.
The one thing I will say, Spark, is, and this is as a fan of the Spark, like, I will say, Rockin', they need to figure their lineup out. I'm getting sick of the Crystal Adora thing. You play better as a team, and it's quite obvious. You play better as a team with Crystal in the lineup over Adora. And stick with Crystal. Crystal has more flexibility. Adora basically gets brought in to have a better Baguette. That's really the only reason. Adora's Baguette is better than Crystal's, but Crystal's better at everything else. And slightly worse on Baguette. So, it's
right.
one of those things. Just stick with Crystal. Get that team unity in there. I mean, you have Crystal in there, who is Chinese, along with Gushui, so they could have that communication there. And Crystal is one of the reasons that people love this team, because everyone was so high on Crystal coming in. I sound like an infomercial for Breaking Bad.
You sound like me pre-World Cup.
We're so high on Crystal right now. But you know what I mean? Like, you think about it, like, at the Hanzo Spark, and people love Godspeed. Godspeed is good outside of actual gravitons. He's real bad at grabs. You have Bebe. I think Bebe is a top 5 flex support. You have Gushui, who's the best Winston in the league. Like, you have the tools there. Just stick with a team. So hopefully this future 2-2-2-2-2-2-2 meta, as Totem notes.
Hey, that was only in the tweet.
Oh, okay.
It's not actually in the notes. Yeah. Which I corrected, by the way. Hey, Twitter, give us a damn edit button. Jesus.
Oh my god, I hate that. Like, I spelled one thing wrong.
Right. I gotta redo this after people have already retweeted it.
Do I want to delete this tweet? Nah, screw it. I don't care.
But you know what? The Gladiators could have used those 2 extra players, so they didn't get shut out so hard.
Oh my god. And the thing that hurt is, like, I love this Spark. Spark's awesome. Decay's my favorite player in the league. I'm not shy about my love for Decay. And it just hurt me to see them lose like.
Yeah, so, looking at the Titans NYXL match, for something that we're like, oh, finally, we're gonna get it. We're not gonna have to wait till the very last game of the season in order to see this match happen. It was a bit of a letdown. Now, there were 2 very noticeable things in this series. For one, the Bumper Mono 1v1 was extremely close. There was a lot of one-upsmanship between these 2. Now, the difference is, New York took the approach of, hey, Bumper's kind of going aggro, let's just not kill him like every other team tries to do. And, we'll just try to go for someone else and see how that works. That did not work. It worked better for the Shock, not for the NYXL. But the other part of it was Slime on the Lucio for the Titans up against Nene on the Zarya for the NYXL. Basically, what was happening throughout practically this entire series was Nene would get Slime to the verge of death, and then would have to reload, and Slime would just nope the hell out and escape. And I remember on Legion Tower on Gardens, he escapes with sub 10 HP, strolls back in, gets a kill on Jonak, And that was all she wrote, but it just, I felt so bad for Nene because he would be doing all of this work and he just couldn't finalize the kill. And, you know, despite his efforts and despite how well Mono played, because honestly, like, I felt like that was Mono's best performance in quite some time that we have seen on that Reinhardt role, but, you know, he was landing massive shatters, he was getting more stuns out of his shatters as well compared to Bumper, but the follow-through as a whole just wasn't there because you would have the Titans basically just winning in those even strength situations, and there was just nothing that New York could really do against the Titans. So, you know, we always kind of talked about, like, obviously we have, at one point, the big three, and this was a definitive answer as to who is better between the Titans and the New York Excelsior. So that line between the top tier to the A tier is clear-cut at this point, and I don't think you could argue otherwise anymore.
No, you really can't. Like, it's the top two. And if we don't get a change meta or switch to 2-2-2, next stage, it's going to be Shock versus Titans again. It's one of those things. Nobody's going to come close to them. As far as this matchup goes, like you were talking about Mono versus Bumper, best tank matchup I've seen. Like, the main tank matchup in this series was better than stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
The whole map was not better than stage 1. The stage 1 finals were infinitely better than this. I think the Shock really growed and showed their progression in this and really kind of taking down the Titan. But the tank line for why am I drawing a blank? Shock. Sorry. The tank line for the Shock versus the tank line for the Titans, it was just night and day difference. Like, you're used to the aggressive Bumper.
Mm-hmm.
And you're used to as much as people assume that Super is aggressive, he's not. He's a defensive. He has to be a defensive tank.
Well, here's the thing, too. Like, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions with both of those tanks. Because everyone looks at Bumper and how aggro he gets, and they're like, oh, he must be a feeder. But when you look at his first death statistic, him and Super die 1 and 2 the least out of any Reinhardt in the league.
Yeah, they do. It's just Bumper does more crazy, weird stuff that works out for him.
Right.
Like, he does the flank shatters that Super doesn't. But Super uses more of and you saw this, Super uses more of the defensive shatters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the gravitas, like, if the team gets grabbed, he shatters to counter that. But Bumper doesn't do that as much. But I think really the battle came down to the flex supports. When you're going Twilight versus Violet. Violet, I think, really stepped it up. And there's one stat, and I don't have the exact numbers available, but Violet actually healed more than he did damage,
mm-hmm.
which is not something you normally see in a flex support. You don't normally see the healing outdoing the damage. Like, the Discord Orb and the Transcendence are massive for Zenyatta, but they're generally not the biggest healers, at least over their damage. So Violet really stepped it up. Sinatraa was as questionable as some of his ults were. It doesn't matter because his ult was legit on cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 22-second graviton. 22 seconds from 0 to fully ult charge. 22 seconds.
Yeah, I know there was one map, I don't know if it was in the finals, but I know Super got like a shatter in like 5 seconds on King's Row in one of these series. It's like,
yeah,
what?
It's just one of those things. Like, we saw a lot of sloppy grab throws from both Sumansu and Sinatraa,
mm-hmm.
but it didn't matter because both of them were getting, like, obviously Sinatraa got that 1 in 22 seconds, but the majority of them, they were averaging like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
For the ultimates, which is still super quick. So you can throw graviton surges left and right, and I think that's where the Violet stat comes into play. Like, Violet was getting his ult charge quicker than Twilight because he was able to Transcendence and do more healing because Seiyamatsu was getting more graviton surges out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they kind of go hand in hand. Another thing was Haxel, who's known as one of the best Baguette players in the league, had kind of a down Baguette series.
And a lot of that was just due to, you know, when Bumper was getting aggro, the Shock ignored Bumper. Like, they all know the stat. Like, if you're looking at the Titans in the way that they play, when Bumper goes in deep, and even if he dies, the Titans still win a vast majority of those team fights. So the Shock are like, you know what? Bumper can go wherever. Like, we're just gonna turn our attention to Haxel. And that's why Haxel had such a huge struggle. Like, as I mentioned to you in direct messages, I was like, I honestly lost track of how many first deaths Haxel had, and a lot of that was just due to the fact that he was the primary focus for the Shock. Now, looking at this series, like, I was not disappointed with the result. You know, when we talk about sports rivalries, it's not really a rivalry if it's just one-sided. You need to have wins traded. And while, yes, the Titans have 1-2 compared to the Shock 1, they're tied up when it comes to titles at this point, which is a more important stat than just what the overall arc is. Now, at the end of the day, for me, the biggest thing came down to ult efficiency between these two teams. The Shock were getting better value out of their ults compared to the Titans, and in the Titans' case, their percentage in ult efficiency had dropped, probably close to 10% throughout this series. And I remember on Blizzard World in particular, this is really kind of like their undoing, where they were coming in, they were nearing the end of that second point, they had 5 ultimates to their name, and the Shock managed to clutch it out on defense. They held them there, they took the map, but it was just a situation where, you know, a perfectly timed bubble saved one of their players from a Bumper charge, and that set like a crazy series of events into motion, and they ended up getting the better of the exchange despite being at the ult disadvantage. But with that being said, you know, you mentioned the Gravitons. There were a lot of prediction Graviton surges, so a lot of them were kind of thrown to the wayside, but you know, that's always kind of been Sinatra's case. Like, he's gonna try to get value. There was a lot of times where they're just trying to read their opponents, and not every one of those is going to land. You know, case in point, you know, the Nene grab from stage 1, you know? Prime example.
Hey, we have a new screw-up grab.
Yeah, at least that one landed on the map, right?
Yeah, Seiyamatsu found, like, the one nook under King's Row to throw the grab, and she's just like, yeah, nope, threw it down that hole. Sucks to be me. Yeah, if 3-3 sticks in your mind, do the Titans stand a chance against the Shock next stage? If we have the same meta,
I feel like a lot of this is just going to boil down to if they're going to shore up protection on Haxel, or if the Shock are going to try something different. Because that was a pretty evident weakness, and they kept going for that heal time and time again. I will say, though, like, on any given day, one of these teams is going to beat the other. Like, it's a coin toss. I feel like the Shock, though, you know, like, it was very fitting. You had the Titans' match streak coming to an end. You had the Shock's map streak coming to an end. And, you know, at the end of the day, these are basically teams that are 1-1, both in their stage titles, but also how you would rank them. Like, I don't think there's a definitive, oh, this is the best team compared to this team. They're so close. Now, had this been another 4-3, you could make a stronger argument for that, but at the end of the day, these are the best teams, hands down. But maybe the Shock have a little bit more flexibility should some changes happen, but until that does happen, I'm so good to say that they are 1-1. You're muted, by the way.
Derp. I was surprised that the didn't actually go for a goat, because that has definitely been a weakness for the Shock. And like the Dragons took advantage of that. That's kind of how they won that one map off of them.
Mm-hmm.
But like when things were starting to steamroll a little bit in the Shock's favor, I was surprised they didn't go more Sombra goats to throw them off. And not be like, all right, we're just going to keep throwing 3-3 at you and try and beat you 3-3. We're going to go for your weakness, which is Sombra. As much as Super likes to trash talk Sombra players and people running Sombra goats,
It's because that character pisses him off.
Yep.
Basically.
But I was surprised the Titans, they have actually run previously, and they're not bad with it. It just the Titans are not really bad at anything. Like, I mean, we'll talk about this when we get in the 2-2-2 discussion, but they're not bad at all, and I don't think in a new meta they're going to be bad at all either.
No.
So that just surprised me a little.
Yeah, and the post-match hug between Super and Bumper was definitely right in the feels. I mean, you could tell, like, those two have just a massive amount of respect for one another.
Right.
So
I loved how Choyo ran up and hugged Dante.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually pretty cool.
Didn't one of the... I remember watching, like, the Custa, like, news scene, and I think it was, like, Violet, like, during the hug that, like, fell on the stage in the background.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
You'll have to go back and watch it for the Custa News Network or whatever the heck they called it. But that was the thing that happened during that moment that I saw, and I was like, oof. Feels bad, man. But anyways, let's move into our main discussion. Keep things rolling. So... recently, Slasher had revealed that, major changes are expected to come to not only Overwatch, but the Overwatch League, and it seems likely that they're going to debut in the Overwatch League before they do come to live. So, that discussion change has been the addition of role restrictions to the game. Now, that would mean, we're going to move to a 2-2-2, with 2 tanks, 2 supports, 2 DPS, and we already know that our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Kep, praise him. He has said on multiple occasions that the development team are on board with this and have actively looked into this. Now, the anniversary event is coming up. Maybe we might see it then. Maybe they're going to hold off. But it's very clear that when it comes to the current meta in the Overwatch League with the 3-3, there is the Shock, the Titans, and then the rest of the league. We need something to surface in the Overwatch League to keep things fresh. I would say, like, the viewership has been better than I have been anticipating because of the doom and gloom, with people like, I don't want to watch triple tank, triple support, And the numbers have been fairly consistent. That being said, if we get 3-3 for a third stage in a row, that's really when I'm going to start to worry about how the numbers are going to hold up, just because of how clear-cut that top 2 is compared to the rest of the league. And I don't know if the league... I'm not going to say, like, the league's not going to be able to survive it, but I feel like there is going to be a noticeable decrease and dip in the viewership. Now, that being said, with a 2-2-2, we could see some shakeups, but looking at, the teams, or even looking at the hero pool, like, who do you feel like would be the bigger winners and losers in a situation where 2-2-2 is going to become prevalent?
All right, well, I'm going to say this. The biggest are China. I hate to say Shanghai be a big loser in this, for the simple fact that they don't have a good off tank. They just don't. They did very well with, like, 3 DPS and 2 support tank, stuff like that. Sometimes flexing. Like, they did well with the main tank, Zarya, Sombra. Like, that's what they did good at. But their Zarya player wasn't their flex tank. It wasn't their diva player or something like that. So that is where they really, sucked. And if we go to a force 2-2-2, well, who's going to be your off tank? Because you can't run, I don't think you can run Zarya as your off tank in a 2-2-2. So I think they're going to diminish a little. I also think the Hunters, the Chengdu Hunters, are really going to be probably the biggest loser, because if anyone didn't run 2-2-2 or even 3-3, it was them. They ran 1-2-3. I don't even know who even is their diva player. Like, I don't even know who it is.
I mean, it's either Elsa or Leon. I honestly haven't looked at their hero pool lately, because they don't normally play it.
Exactly. So, like, they're gonna hurt that way, because they're used to just winning and doing well by out damaging people and running those cheeky comps, which works for them in 3-3, but in 2-2-2 forced, I don't think that's gonna be a big thing. As far as teams that's really gonna shine, I think the Dallas Fuel is one that's going to shine, because they're kind of set up for a good 2-2-2. The trade they made, if it does go to forced 2-2-2, the note for RCK trade looks 10 times better. Because, like, the big thing about trading away RCK was, okay, you lose the mobility of switching from D.Va to Sombra and so on and so forth. Well, in Force 2-2-2, D.Va can't flex to Sombra. D.Va has to flex to Roadhog, flex to another off tank. So I think that was huge for the Dallas Fuel with Note and OGE. And getting Zachary, who I think is a very underrated DPS player in the league, it's just he's been in Brig Jail. I think he can explode. The weakness in a 2-2-2 for the Fuel actually is going to be AKM. I think because AKM is very limited hero pool, as weird as that sounds, because he was a good Zarya, but his hero pool is limited when he's forced to play DPS. Like, It's basically Soldier. Yeah.
You can't say Genji, don't.
Yeah, no. It's basically Soldier. So, like, it limits them, but I think they will get a little bit better. I don't know. Who do you think is going to benefit or be the downfall most?
It's so hard to say. I feel like the 2-2-2 change as a whole is going to benefit more teams than it's going to hurt. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, how are the Shock and the Titans going to do when they can't dominate a 3-3 meta? And the truth is, like, you look at the Shock, that team has more flexibility at their key positions than any other team in the league. You look at the Titans, well, predating the Overwatch League, before 3-3 was a thing, they were considered to be the top dive team, and there is a fairly good chance, come 2-2-2, that dive might be one of the go-to variants.
I mean, I'll say this with the Titans, and this is arguable with Haskell in the lineup, but their best DPS player isn't actually playing. Like, Stitch is arguably their best DPS player. He's just not a good Zarya. And that's why he hasn't been playing over Sumansu. But, like, you're going to see zero fall-off in Haskell Sumansu to Haskell Stitch if you're forced 2-2-2. So, I actually think the Titans, oddly enough, get better. That's weird to...
I don't know if you can say that since they haven't lost in the group stage.
Okay,
you thought you were gonna catch me, but I got you. Oh, you baited. I don't think so, sir. You thought you were gonna catch me slipping. I don't think so. That's not how this works. But anyways, okay. Obviously, with the 2-2-2, we will see variants just like we saw with the 3-3 meta. Now, I will say with the tank lineup, Wrecking Ball is kind of in an odd spot in 2-2-2, but we will still see Rein Zarya comps. We will see a lot of pulled pork comps, with Horse and Hog. And, if you need a recent proof of that, just go back, tune into Contenders Korea with Element Mystic when they ran 2-2-2 against a lot of these 3-3 teams, running Rein, Zarya, Sombra, Doomfist, Ana, Lucio. If you want even further proof of that, I highly recommend, we got a couple of events coming up that are Contenders based. We got the Pacific Showdown, which has LGE Hua, Element Mystic, the one winner, Talon Esports, Order, O2 Blast. If you want a preview of things to come, I highly recommend you check out the Pacific Showdown, because for one, you're probably not going to be seeing a lot of 3-3, because of the region in particular. This is a region that's known for being outlandish, running a lot of DPS-heavy compositions, running a lot of 2-2-2. Check out the Pacific Showdown when it happens. That is May 23rd through the 25th. That's coming up really soon. And we'll probably end up covering that too, since Overwatch League isn't going to be back on. So, something to look forward to. But, you're looking at some of these things. Like, we might see the return of Widowmaker. As well. Junkertown, we saw a lot of the pulled pork with, Hanzo in Widowmaker. So, we could see potentially people like Pine might even come back. Who knows? You might even see more Saya player get an escape from Brigio. You might even see Saint Bilby. Who even knows? You'll see the return of EQO and not just be a Brig bot like he has been, like an afterthought on the Philadelphia Fusion throughout the entirety of this season. So, going into 2-2-2, you're going to have a lot of these DPS players that are suddenly playing a role that they actually want to play, because it's fairly evident the amount of disdain a lot of the Overwatch League players have when it comes to playing Brigitte. Now, that being said, not all of the DPS players are like that. A lot of them are like, okay, I'll play whatever. We'll mold to whatever the team needs, given any sort of meta shift, but then you have the very vocal ones, and ones that you could just tell, they don't even want to be there, So...
You can say his name. It's Zachary.
Well, I mean, that's definitely one of the top names that come to mind.
He's probably the top name of, alright, get me the hell off Baguette.
Mm-hmm.
Zachary and Blase are probably the top two.
I could definitely see that. And, should this, these Sombra Fist, combos come in, Blase's stock is gonna rise. I cannot wait for that. But, when it comes to 2-2-2, looking at the variations, do you feel like Dive is going to be the centerpiece when all is said and done?
I think Dive will be the default while they kind of figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because even, yes, they probably know what's coming before we do, so they can practice it.
I mean, I would hope.
Yeah, but, here's the thing. A lot of the best teams can't practice on that because they're still practicing playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to probably get the default Dive from the get-go. And then you're going to start to see some variation from that. From some of the teams who maybe didn't make the playoffs, who had a little bit more time to practice. So, I'm looking at you, Boston Uprising, teams like that, the Seoul Dynasty, see what they run. Because they would be able to play it a little bit more.
Can we add the Gliders to that discussion since they didn't show up to the playoffs?
No, you can't.
That's right.
They still practice. They still had to practice on 3-3. So, I don't know. It will be interesting. I think Dive will be the default, but you could see some interesting combinations. There's been a lot of rumblings that Orisa is kind of making a comeback as the main tank.
Yeah, that's true on ladder, especially.
And, you kind of... There's a progression system with the meta. The meta kind of starts a little bit at, lower levels of the Overwatch League ladder, and then slowly gets refined on its way up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at Diamond, Platinum, blah, 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 moving your way up. And then once it starts hitting Grandmaster, Top 500, all that fun stuff, once theirs start playing it, that kind of becomes the meta in the Overwatch League. And you're starting to see more and more Orisa as the main tank on a large portion of maps because it just fits. Obviously not like attack on Numbani. You're not going to use Orisa. But I think like on most defensive maps, you would use Orisa, and then you get the pulled pork. You get the Orisa Roadhog. Well, then that actually plays into the 2-2 meta, 2-2-2 meta, because like, okay, well, what if we do something? Because a lot of Roadhog players aren't the actual off-tank players.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of Roadhog players like are
flex support
or even some DPS players. So on this map, do we bring in one of our flex supports and be like, okay, they're going to be playing the tank role, and they just stick them on Roadhog the entire time?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do stuff like that. But I don't think there's going to be a legit meta when it comes to 2-2-2. Because everyone's going to have different variations on different maps.
Right.
And like the naysayers of the 2-2-2, you kind of just have to look at them and be like, it's going to make the developers' job 10 times easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll be able to adjust characters.
Right.
Based on specific 2-2-2.
Right. Now, Brigida would be a player that's going to see some fall off should 2-2-2 come, and then, maybe they'll go back.
She would actually need buffs.
Yeah, they might go back to buffing her armor or tweaking the shield bash again, things like that. But again, like, a lot of this is going to be dependent on, one, whether or not this actually happens, and two, how quick they're going to attack the balance updates at that point. Because when it comes to the Overwatch League, chances are it's not going to come with a balance patch. Honestly, like, so some of those things might not even be in effect until Stage 4.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've heard is a rumbling that they could do that really, could shake up the meta as much as a 2-2-2 is make Reinhardt immune to stun effects. That would change it up a lot. But I don't know. Like, you'll get this initial 2-2-2, required 2-2-2, and the game will be broken. Like, plain and simple, the game will be broken because there's no way for them to truly test mandatory 2-2-2. Like,
because right now it's just mystery heroes.
Exactly.
In the workshop. With Force 2-2-2.
So they can't balance the game based on that. What will happen is they'll implement 2-2-2, see how thing goes, and then make adjustments based on that down the road. So like you said, Stage 4 will be the clear indicator of what the 2-2-2 meta might actually be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could get something crazy in Stage 3 where, like, Bastion Torbjorn are meta for the DPS. And you just like you just don't know. Like, you could realize in a 2-2-2 that Symmetra is actually a broken character, but we just didn't realize it because nobody played it because she's not effective against a 3-3. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna see these interactions that are just broken, and there's not much they can do about it until Stage 4.
Well, hopefully we'll hear something within the next week or so. But All-Star festivities are kicking off, so let's go ahead, close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. We're always looking for insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you guys. If you guys want to find additional Overwatch-related content, check out Overwatch Recall, which is our podcast directory, where you can find, all the Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League, all that good stuff on our website. And then every Sunday we do release a weekly recall, which is a listing of all of the content that was produced in the last week, which is posted not only on our website, but also you can find the link on our Twitter at OWRecall. If you'd like to show some additional support, consider pledging to our Patreon. We have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and you can find more info at patreon.com/OWL network, so you too can join the likes of our master patrons and above, Blazing Bob, as a former Masters player, Brendan, and Gabby in helping our network grow. So thank you guys again for all of your continued support. But wait, there is more, because we got 2 things coming up. One of them this weekend, one of them next weekend. We have brought back podcaster panels for the Overwatch League because we are in the break. So we have 2 panels. The first one is coming up on May 18th, that is this Saturday, with the second one happening on Sunday, May 26th, both of which will be starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time. So we have 11 podcasts involved in all of this, despite how much r/competitive Overwatch wants to complain about 2 particular podcasts, one of which would never happen, because Thorin would just look down on literally anyone else involved in this. But we got the Birdwatchers, Broverwatch, Casual OWL Fans, Heroes Never Die, High Noon, Omnic Lab, Omnic Weekly, Overtakes, Overwatch League Network, Overwatch League Recap, and Push the Point. And of course, we will be streaming both on our channel, and they'll be available on podcatchers everywhere. So on Saturday, I feel like I'll just list the panelists now, because this one is happening this week. I will be moderating that panel. We will have Howler from Casual OWL Fans, Ryan from the Birdwatchers, we'll have Adam from the Broverwatch, Edinar, you'll be joining us, representing Heroes Never Die. We'll be also with Deathblow from High Noon, Rob, the host of Omnic Lab, Kel from Overtakes, Melarina from Overwatch League Recap, and rounding out the 10 people on this panel, we have our boy Julian Goulian, aka Ramses, aka my fantasy OWL duo partner, who has been crushing this fool over here, at least in that league, 2 times in a row. We beat you. You're deflecting it onto Bob, I know. But regardless.
I am not a full owner in that one.
Regardless, we have Ramses from Push the Point, and we do have all of the OWL by the Numbers crew doing a Push the Point episode coming up soon as well. More details on that soon. But I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good time. We have 2 panels. And I know, Reddit's gonna complain. It is what it is. I'll vent. And I'll vent the cesspool. But whatever. I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well. And so is everyone else involved. But Ed, we have a number of different ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
Well, at first I gotta say, as a former unlimited Stage 2 champion, I will not only be representing Heroes Never Die, as the champion, the only champion of OWL by the Numbers, I'm claiming I will be representing them as well. So I'm not representing 1, but 2 podcasts, because I'm a fantasy god.
Are you done?
I went there. Okay. So you can reach the show. You can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website you can come to. That's owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube channel where we release our weekly power rankings, all that fun stuff. Spider makes some amazing videos, and that's youtube.com/Overwatch League Network.
Hey, I did a video too.
You did a video with the worst joke ever. That is negated. Worst dad joke of all time.
What can I say? I'm just following Slambo's lead. It's more him because of the hashtag Dad Joke Dojo. You can blame the Cavalry. Shout out to the Cavalry. They're the ones that started that. It's all their fault.
Yep. You can reach us. We are on discord.me/OWL show. We are streaming presently live on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/OWL show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network streams pretty regularly. So we have the Overwatch League Network, which airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have OWL by the Numbers featuring King Edinar that is Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. Then host streams, when available, will fall on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific with Totem. And Spider is planning on streaming Thursdays.
Yeah, primarily.
Primarily Thursdays. So keep an eye on our Discord and Twitter for all that.
Now, minor gripe, Ed. This has nothing to do with fantasy at all. I love the fact that you're like, we are presently streaming live. Ed, by the time someone's gonna listen to this, we're not actually going to be live.
Well, you know what? I'm saying this for the Twitch, the people here who are here for the live show.
Okay.
That is like the 4 of us.
Okay. But anyways,
So,
get it back on track.
As Totem mentioned before, the Patreon, that's /OWL Network. So come over there, help us out any way you can. You could reach me personally on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Yeah, I'm not gonna do my Marvel question this week. I did it yesterday.
Right.
OWL by the numbers. Watch that. You'll get to know my Marvel question of the week. It's quite a good one. It's talks about trying to sneak up on someone and inject them with a goo without them knowing.
But yeah, basically, if you want subcontext, it's oral or anal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, be like, which one do you want? I'm a complete stranger from the future. Do you want it orally or anally? I'll let you pick.
And with that, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. And, you know, we're gonna go enjoy the All-Star festivities. We'll go see whether or not Flex Support can win the Widowmaker 1v1, or, you know, whether the Pacific can hold down the fort for Surefour, who's not even an All-Star this year. Enjoy the All-Star festivities. We'll see you back on Saturday for the mid-season panel. At least for the first one of 2. Tune in. We'll have a Q&A towards the end. And we hope to see you guys next time, everyone. Have a good night.
Have a good one.